Good evening, everyone. This is Chris with the 365. I am up here at the Oroville Dam, and I have just gone on a tour of the entire chute that you can see behind me there, and the area above at the emergency spillway. And the DWR, Matt from the DWR, gave me a tour, and you will see that video forthcoming, and showed all the construction techniques and all the work they've done on that area behind me. And as you can see right back there, they have done an immense amount of work. They showed how they've retrofitted everything and gotten rid of the older construction techniques that they had there before. They showed how the new walls that look so small behind me but are actually like 30 foot tall, how those are constructed and anchored into the whole area. So you'll have Matt's explanation on this video from there. And we also were able to, I'm going to try to tilt you a little bit. No, it's got to go the other way. We also were able to tour what they're calling the Secant Wall, but it's the extra wall in front of the emergency spillway that will be used to make sure that there's no head-cutting erosion if they ever need to use the emergency spillway again. So that will be what follows. As always, have a great day. Thank you for watching, and make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Bye. All right, first off, we should probably ask who you are. Who are you?
I'm Matt Murray. I'm a water resources engineer for the California Department of Water Resources.
Okay, and where are we at right now? Which part of the project?
So we are actually, we're going to be touring the spillway today, but right now we're actually right underneath the new power line alignment, the new permanent alignment that comes out of Hyatt Power Plant and takes us out off into the grid. So shortly here Chris is going to show you that we've got a couple of these new towers that we're standing right underneath. We can hear the lines humming right above us. They're online and they're energized, so this is how Hyatt's getting its power out to the grid now.
And this is not a DWR project.
It actually is. So there's a combination though. The towers that are on the farthest or the southernmost side, that series of towers and the lines that are attached to those are actually a PG&E line. So PG&E started this new alignment because they had a power line that was interrupted during the spillway. Yeah. And then at the same time, we also had our own power lines that used to go over the top of the spillways. We had a big issue with that during the emergency. We were afraid that those towers were going to fall or fail into the big crack that happened on the spillway. And so we did a temporary fix, and now we actually have the permanent fix of these new permanent towers that are on foundations, and wrap the power lines all the way around the project now. So permanently, this is where the lines will always stay. Obviously, there's a new clear cut kind of in this area. It's a really wide berth. That's for fire prevention and serviceability in the future for these lines. So we're partnered with PG&E, and this is again, they did part of it, and then we had a contractor, Ballard Construction, that came up here and did a lot of the other work.
And so these new lines, they run from the Hyatt power plant behind us there, behind you there?
Yes.
All around the mountain?
Yeah, so I'll point it here.
Okay.
So over here you have Oroville Dam, just to get you oriented. So Oroville Dam, right at the base of the dam on kind of the far bank, that's where the Hyatt power plant switchyard is that actually transforms the power, ramps it up, and actually takes it on these 230 kilovolt lines above us. So those towers, you can see them way off in the distance, actually come across. You can see the next set of towers just over the top of the trees underneath that green surge tower. And then up and over the hill, now coming straight at us. And then long term, or further along the line, you can see them come behind us on the other side. And ultimately back across the diversion pool and onto their original alignment, which takes them out towards the Table Mountain substation between Oroville and Chico.
And then back down that direction?
Yeah, you can see those. Yep, it actually goes over the top of Table Mountain right there. There's actually a clear swath of cleared vegetation that takes you over, so that's why that's there.
Right. So nothing was affected by the fire the other day?
I believe that those power lines were not very far from the Cherokee fire, and obviously this is critical infrastructure for the area and for the grid, so we don't want to lose those power lines, and obviously those power lines are critical for us to be able to continue to use Hyatt. And so using Hyatt, less about power, more about water management and the reservoir management during our emergency crisis. So we need to make sure that we can continue to have, those dials and knobs to turn, if you will, through Hyatt Power Plant while the spillway is getting completed this year. So
I can hear a lot of activity going on behind us there.
Yeah.
So what are we straight across behind us, behind you there? What is that?
That's actually the spoil pile. So a lot of the material, about 1 million cubic yards, a little over that, was actually stockpiled there during the spillway emergency. And we're actually taking all of that material and we're hauling it over to the crusher all the way on the far bank over here. You can see some of the piles of gravel. There's a white truck down there at the base of those piles of gravel. So that's actually being processed, crushed, and then what we can use, we actually use those aggregates and the sand in our concrete mix to repair the spillway. So we're recycling everything that came out from that stockpile, taking it across, using it over there on the other side. So hopefully we'll have enough this season, and we may need to do a little bit of import next year. So Kiewit's analyzing how much rock they have and what they're going to need.
Okay. It's amazing the difference that this area looks like after the construction crews have gone through. I remember when all this started, walking right on this very hill. I can see why they still have the roads closed up here, because they are doing a massive amount of work, especially, so to orient you guys here, if I walk right over here, the road you see in front of you, that's actually Ore Dam Boulevard, just beyond the barricade, probably about a quarter mile, maybe half a mile. So the whole time this road has been closed, they've been doing this. They've been repairing these lines, putting down foundation for all these high tension wires, and moving equipment back and forth. So there's the explanation for those who were wondering about why the road is still closed, is because they are still doing a lot of work here.
Oh my God, this is so cute.
Oh, the lake is far down.
Yeah, the lake's at about 702, elevation 702.
Dang.
So it's down about 200 feet. Obviously that's for trying to be prepared for a wet year if we need to. Yeah.
I just read yesterday that we are going to have a very wet winter because we have a La Nina. They just predicted that yesterday.
I haven't heard anything new about it. But
Yesterday they...
So the lake's at 702 right now?
yeah, and so it'll keep kind of coming down. It's only coming down a little bit right now. So it'll go a little further. We definitely want to be below 700 in about 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
What is the bottom?
So the bottom of the spillway is at 813. That's when we could theoretically open the gates and use it if we needed to.
Okay.
So
you're pretty safe for now.
we have a lot of water, a lot of storage that we could fill up before we would need to use the spillway, and that's the intent this season, is to make sure that if we don't have to use the spillway, we are going to try at all costs to not use it. So that's why we're pulling the reservoir down low. But if we need to, the spillway is going to be ready for about 100,000 CFS this season. That's the target. So.
And that is, what's the target date for that?
So we could theoretically open the spillway gates, anytime in November if we needed to. But obviously, you see how much room we have in the lake. It would take a unprecedented storm in the month of at the end of this month, within the next 3 weeks, plus in November, to really get us up to any kind of threat to flood control at that point. Hang on to your camera over there, Terry.
I'm so happy with this.
I haven't actually ever seen that little island that's there.
Oh, look at this.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah, that actually, our gravel boat
That's
ramp.
probably
Our
it.
gravel boat ramp is actually,
Right.
that's a parking area right in between those the island and us.
Right.
That's a gravel parking lot right there. So.
But isn't that...
So we're gonna go down into the chute. I'm gonna skip the top for now. Let's
Okay.
go in. It says welcome. It's welcoming all the new equipment, and anytime there's an oil change or tire change and any service needs of the equipment, that's where it's typically handled.
Oh, I thought we were going to go there.
Nope, we're gonna go over here.
Wow. I love to say wow, sorry. This is amazing.
So there it is. We'll go up top later, and you guys will get a great view of that too.
Cool. And they're using this top area as a staging area because it wasn't damaged, right?
Yeah, it wasn't damaged, and so we're going to retain the top 730 feet of the chute. The concrete there, we did a lot of testing on it. We did some ground penetrating radar, and all of that concrete is 5 to 7 feet thick up there. So it's a lot heavier than where we had some of the issues this year. So they're gonna kind of seal it up and bolt it down and hold on to it. And we'll use it for this season, and then next year we'll actually rip it all out and replace that area too.
Cool.
Wow.
Terry, you're looking at the Secant pile wall over there?
That's what that is?
Yep. So that's the drill rigs that are drilling.
It's going to stay like this?
Yep. There's going to be a wall that comes all the way across towards us. You can kind of see the guide forms that are kind of in the closer, scope of your camera, and then as you look further on, you can see the rest of the drill rigs that they have staged out there to work on the Secant wall.
How amazing.
So they drill the holes. They're about 35 to 65 feet deep, and they overlap. All of them overlap. So just imagine using your drill and just drilling a straight line.
Wow.
So
and then it all connects underground. They fill those holes up with concrete then, and since they're all connected, it actually makes a cutoff wall underground. And that's so that if any water comes over the top of all of this, they're going to armor in between here and the emergency spillway to our right up on top. And everything will be armored. So if we ever need to use it, the water will roll over the emergency spillway across that armored area. Right now you can see that's kind of the riprap and the concrete we put out there in the emergency.
That is what you put in emergency.
Yeah.
Is that going to be removed?
We're actually going to have to remove that so that we can have an engineered, good solid foundation for the roller compacted concrete that's going to line this area. And that's going to start in the spring. So they've actually already started removing some of the material on the far side. You can kind of see there's some digging way in the distance, and that area is being cleared. You see that big excavator loading up a truck right there. So they're actually getting that area prepped so that we can do roller compacted concrete again starting in a couple of months here. So even though construction in November, that's kind of our deadline for getting the spillway done, so that we can use it if we need to this year, phase 1 construction. We're going to really just kind of refocus our efforts from there. It's going to start really getting hammered down over here on the Secant pile wall. So, and then as soon as we can back, probably May or June of next year, we'll allow Kiewit to go back into the chute once, weather has allowed us to do what we need.
I'm going to ask a layman question. What is a Secant pile wall?
So it's an underground wall that's just made out of concrete.
Right there.
And so you're drilling it underground, and again, the idea is that if water goes over the top of all of these structures, ultimately it's going to go off into the hillside down here. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to give a cutoff spot where we wouldn't have headward erosion again that would threaten the structure. So the purpose of that wall is to protect the emergency spillway so that we wouldn't have a risk, to that structure again like we did this last year where we thought we nearly lost it.
But how come you're taking pieces over there?
How come we're taking what?
You started already taking a part of the
emergency spillway.
Emergency, yeah.
So that area wasn't lined over there. That area over there wasn't lined. Just this area in the foreground was lined. So way off there in the distance, that area wasn't actually prepared before. So the reason why we're getting it prepped is because as soon as February, March, we're going to try to get going on armoring that section. So we have a lot of work to do to get all the dirt out of the way.
Is this going to be covered or is going to be a dip still?
I believe there's going to be somewhat of a dip, but not nearly as big as it is right now. So there'll be a little bit of a drop, and then it'll channel at lower flows, and then it'll be able to still handle big flows if it needs to get that high.
All those rocks that were in there, they're going to be removed or
all of it's going to be removed. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, we didn't have quality control over that. If you can, imagine we were bringing in everything as fast as we could, and normally we have concrete slump tests, and we have the times that they can be in the truck, and lots of different specifications.
All the way deep down where
Yep, we need to get down to a good solid foundation, so they'll clean the foundation and prep it, accordingly, and a lot of that'll probably be exposing down to a bedrock in a lot of areas if they can, and we'll build it similar in design and construction that we did over here in the chute that we'll see in a little while.
Wow, that is a lot of work itself.
Yes, it is.
Are you gonna blow it up like you did before?
I don't know. I haven't heard yet. I don't know if they're gonna manually remove it, or if they're gonna actually expose it. Well, manually with equipment.
Oh, it has concrete, right?
Yeah, concrete. So you'd have to break it up with jackhammers on the end of the trucks. So.
Wow, that's amazing. All that work, all those truckers work.
Yeah, and that's where the old road used to take you over to the Spillway boat ramp. So you can imagine we don't have a road over there right now. So to get over, they put a temporary road up over the top. That's the big dirt berm that goes over the top to our right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, that's amazing.
Okay. Let's do it. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Watch your footing. You be careful, guys.
Okay.
Here's obviously a great shot of the roller compacted concrete.
Say that again.
So here's a great shot of the roller compacted concrete as we're walking up. You can just see how much smaller this area is now than where it was. It used to be a lot wider. And so now they're getting the same, almost the same volume of concrete's getting produced at the plant way down below. And because of that, now that the platform is smaller, we're actually getting a higher vertical gain every day. Before, we were only able to get like 1 to 2 feet every day in a full 24-hour shift, and now they're getting closer to 3 or 4 feet every day. And so that's going to continue to get better as we get closer. So they've only got about 2 weeks left, and then that surface down there is going to be meeting up with where you can see this formwork up at the top.
Okay, so they're climbing from there
1 foot at a time.
1 foot at a time, all the way up to there. How much distance would you say that is?
I think right now we're probably somewhere around 40 to 50 feet down, so it's getting pretty close.
Okay. And so those two are supposed to meet within the next couple weeks.
Yeah, about 2 weeks they're scheduled to meet up.
That is what it is. Oh my God.
So this whole chute will be connected here, and we'll actually have a continuous chute. In about 2 to 3 weeks, you'll see it actually connect, and then there'll be some finished work on the walls that'll still have to come up. And they're still working obviously on the chute and the walls, but we're going to walk right out there right now. You can see here's a big truck coming in with a load of roller compacted concrete coming down the road. He'll stop at the tire washing station. You're going to see him in just a second, that big dump truck. They'll wash his tires off because we don't want to contaminate the concrete with dirt. And then he'll drop it right in front of this bulldozer. The bulldozer will kind of guide where he wants it. And then he'll push it around. Right after that, the rollers come in behind it and start compacting it in place.
Quite literally roller compacted.
Exactly. Workers down here on the bottom, they're actually vacuuming out sand and gravel out of the foundation. They're getting ahead of these guys, so they actually have to vacuum out every little piece of material because we want that foundation completely spotless.
The guys right down there?
Yeah, you see they have the shot backs, and he's actually shot backing down to the cracks.
Oh my gosh.
They've done that across this entire surface, top to bottom.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So then they have to take the 5-gallon buckets of dirt, gravel, and sand and pull it out. Here's the dump trucks coming out here now. You can see him rolling. They typically load about 25 yards at a time.
Okay.
And so instead of seeing your typical concrete truck that has a spinning drum in the back with a wet concrete mix, this is much drier. It looks kind of like asphalt when it comes out, but that's actually a concrete mixture. It has Portland cement and fly ash in it, which are additives, or your additives that cure it. The fly ash makes it a little more workable.
And this additive
So here it is right here.
Is for this kind of work only?
Yeah, they can use it. They build dams out of it. That's kind of a new popular dam design if it's appropriate for the area that you're in. Makes a nice, good, solid foundation. It's very, very watertight once it's done, so it holds water really well too. It holds water back. So you can see him here. He is getting ready to dump it. Just as I described.
Doing each of...
What are these guys doing over there?
So they do that each 25 yards at a time.
Yep. But you see how much faster it is than having to bring a concrete pumper, pump it out. Sometimes it takes 15 minutes to get it out of the back of the truck. We don't have that kind of time. And then you have to wait. Yeah, it's so wet that you'd have to worry about it curing and everything else. In this case, it cures over a longer period of time, but it ultimately makes a really strong product. So
what is the curing time?
So I think at about 30 days it's supposed to be 2,500 psi. So that's a little bit less than kind of your run-of-the-mill concrete, but long term I believe it has about a 4,000 psi strength at about. But that could take almost a year to get to.
Okay.
So, but it makes it's also compacted into place, so there's no air entrained in this really. So The beauty of that means that these guys can roll on it right afterward, lay it down, and compact it into place. It's got to meet a 98% compaction rating, so
and then
that's tested frequently.
And then they can just drive right over the top of it and do the same process again.
Yeah, short of just a couple of days in the last 3 months, this has been a continuous process, really, from start to finish. So there's no cold joints in this in the concrete world. We don't want to have an area where we're not bonded really well together. So it's just been a continuous pour 24/7. Like I said, just a couple of days where they've had some breaks for letting the guys get a breather.
It's insane.
They're on schedule. They're going to meet up here, like I said, in about 2 weeks. That's part of our November 1 deadline, is making sure that this thing's connected. We have a chute that's ready to go.
All right.
Cranes. If they honk, it means they're about to be turning. So we need to pay attention when you hear honks.
Okay.
We don't want to stand under their loads. We'll get squished if they fall.
Right. Matt, I don't like heights, so I won't be falling off. Walking onto the job site right now, actually onto the main chute of the Spillway with Matt Murray from EWR.
Can I get through here and pop up? What's the easiest way? Is it better to go up this way or down here?
Better go this way.
This way? Watch your footing, guys.
Okay.
This has some plywood on it in a little while, so it won't be like this forever.
Amazing. Okay, so we are actually on the main chute of the Oroville Spillway right now. This is a view going down towards where the water would dump out at. Sorry, we don't have the technical term. Past that, you can see the dragon's teeth down at the bottom, which are commonly called diverters. It's a little noisy here, so I hope the audio is okay for you guys. The roller compacted concrete right down there, being placed 25 yards at a time, all day, every day, 24 hours a day. Some of the workers here at the foot of the new construction. Kind of back us out a little bit so you can see the scope of this thing. So these are the walls that have been put in place so far.
Yeah, this side's almost done, Chris.
So walk us through what we're looking at here, Matt.
So you can see the forms. Those are forms that are holding up the concrete. All these walls are poured in place. So some people think that we're pouring them and then tipping them. They're all poured in place so that the connections between the foundation below or the footing is all connected, and the rebar is all connected inside of this. So it's a really good homogeneous pour when we're all done. Again, the form boards stay up there for a couple of days, and then they pull them after once they're hard enough that they feel confident that we can pull them off safely. Then they put a curing compound. So if you look over here to our right, you can see that they just put this new paint job on the outside of it, and that's to allow the concrete to cure properly once we pull the form off, and then it wants to dry faster in the open air. So just like if you look down, we have this visqueen wrap. That's just to try to keep the moisture inside the slab as long as we can so that it cures properly. Avoids surface cracking and things like that you're used to seeing in a lot of other concrete work throughout the world. So we're trying to really keep that at a minimum. And we want this to be really continuous.
You want no cracks in this one, right?
Yeah, ideally, but there's going to be some minor surface stuff. I mean, it's part of the nature of the material of concrete. We can look at some of the chute up here. You can see these are new slabs that are, and this is you can see how smooth this new chute is, and there's a lot of new design elements that help it prevent water penetrating out into the drainage system, and then obviously the drainage system is brand new and state of the art also. But yeah, the walls over here, we'll walk up a little closer and we'll see some of the rebar. This is big rebar and a lot of it, and there's even I-beams. You can see the I-beams that are actually inside the concrete reinforcement.
Let me get a closer shot of that.
So those I-beams are, that's just to help give that wall some more strength, back side to side. And on top of that, the wall's more than twice as thick as it used to be too. So it's a much, much bigger, heavier build than it used to be. Just kind of, these are 21st century technologies. We've learned a lot in the last 60 years of concrete design. So now we do things a little heavier, and just, at this point, that's the safer route for us to do. So pour some extra concrete and have a little bit of a kind of a cushion.
Right.
Can we walk that way?
Watch them strip the form. That might be what they're working on. It just probably takes them a while to get it removed.
Do they take the whole form off, or do they slide it down, or what?
The whole thing tips down. You can see some of these over here. So they're actually working on one right up here. You see it? So they're probably getting ready to erect this form. You can see that those timbers that you see on them are like 4x6s. So they're spaced about 6 inches apart. So there's a lot of wood reinforcement, and then on top of that, they put the kickers out. That's what these those metal poles that go out to the bottom are.
Okay.
Yeah, let's walk a little closer.
Okay.
So if you guys notice, all of the slabs in this area, all of them have been poured down here. So there's some more slabs up top. They're about 30 foot by 30 foot each slab. There's a few more of them up here that haven't been poured yet. So we'll walk all the way up there, and I'll show you some of the new features that we're doing that kind of help prevent water penetrating through, and some different things that we've done this time that now we know better. Now we know that there's different techniques and installation methods than we knew 50 years ago.
Okay. So these are the forms here, Matt?
Yeah. So if you guys look at these forms, you can see that it actually bevels on the bottom. What that is we actually have the forms are thicker at the base, and they actually narrow up a little bit more at the top to give them a heavier build. So but they actually tip these up and they reuse them as much as we can.
So is there a lot of recycling going on in this project?
Yeah, so they reuse the forms wherever it meets the same slope requirements that we had before, because this whole thing actually is curving as we're going. And so these forms, you can imagine, they all have to have a very slight curve on them as we come up over the hill, because we want the water to come down nice and smooth over the top.
So you have to accommodate?
Yeah, so they have to tweak the forms a little bit, change them just a little bit. That's probably what you're seeing some of this work over here, and them getting prepped and ready to erect that. They use the cranes to tip them up into place, then they secure them. They pour the other side, or they get the other form on the other side, do the same thing, secure them together. Once they have it prepped, then they go and they actually pour concrete. Somebody actually has to climb down in the inside of that rebar and trim all the concrete.
Inside the rebar?
I don't want that job.
What?
Right? You see he's in the rebar right there, but he's just doing some cleanup work.
So are you saying that when they're pouring, or just before they pour,
when they're pouring, there's somebody that has to be inside the forms in a little 5-foot section there, and it's the skinny guy on the job that's got to climb down in between.
Oh man!
And probably a very, very claustrophobic situation, but he's down there with a harness, and they have a rescue team ready to pull him out if they need to.
So
and he actually has a vibration tool that actually vibrates and trims the concrete into place. So they pump it down in through from a pumper truck.
Wow, that is an incredible job.
Yeah, let's walk a little closer. You guys can get an idea of what that looks like. Watch.
From here, it looks like somebody sits there, but I see one there. He must be very scared. I won't fit there. Wow, that's thick rebar.
Yeah.
It really is.
Are these all number 8s?
Yeah, I'm not.
Generally? Yeah.
Wow, it
Gives you an idea of how big that wall is.
wow.
Let me see if I can get it all in camera here.
Good job of yours.
Man.
safety glasses?
Oh,
I
glass.
I have a pair.
Thank you.
and I thought I had actually had my glasses and I dropped them.
I guess I can have my gloves on too.
Yeah.
Well, gloves aren't such a big thing. But,
Okay, well, I'll take
safety
those.
glasses definitely are.
And somewhere my glasses are on this
I
slab
hope
now.
they weren't a good pair.
They probably weren't. We'll walk back the same way.
Yeah, we're gonna go out the same way.
Yeah, we'll walk out and hopefully I'll find them.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Chris.
Chris, hi, Wayne Wolf, DWR Safety.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Obviously, you're doing your job well.
Thank you for doing your job.
Yeah.
It's all right. You know, it's Kiewit seems to do it right. We need to set the example.
Right.
Thank you. Wayne.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're taking them around and giving them some shots, and they'll put some things on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Good deal.
Yeah, we're going to walk up and come back down. Anything specific today we should be worried about while we're up there?
No, just watch the overhead loads. When they blow the horns, you make sure you're clear of the loads.
Okay. All right.
They won't move it to accommodate you. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot, Wayne.
No, that's it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
He obviously is doing his job well. And I must have lost my sunglasses somewhere.
So why don't we look at this for a second? I can show you. This is kind of a new feature. So now as the water comes down at the top, you can obviously feel, you guys are standing on this. This is not like your sidewalk concrete. It's not a broom finish.
It's
a
much
smooth
smoother,
finish.
yeah.
And so actually with a little bit of the dust and stuff on right now, it's a little slick for us. But you can see if the water came down, there's actually a drop here, and that's intentional. A lot of people might think that looks like a construction error. No, so when we want the water to come over the top, it actually gives it a chance to kind of jump over this crack, which prevents any kind of erosion on the actual crack surface right here. We need these construction joints for expansion, contraction of the concrete, but those also, are a potential area where you could have water intrude below. So we want to try to keep these from taking very much damage. So now again, the water goes over the top, so it's a little bit of a drop, about a 1-inch drop.
And is that every so?
That's all of them, every slab.
And how
these
big
slabs,
is each slab?
These slabs are all about 30 feet long. I think that they're a little bit wider than they are long, so somewhere around 30 to 40. You can see this kind of slab right here. You can see the lines that show you how big it is. That's 1 pour. And then that concrete actually has 2 sets of rebar in it now, and they're much bigger rebar like you just saw on the walls. So there's actually 2 mats of rebar that are connected to the anchor system below.
And this goes from wall to wall?
Yep.
And so this entire thing is connected to the ground below, interconnected with the rebar in between, and then the walls are connected to that too. So it's just one continuous piece.
It's all tied together really well. Yeah, a lot of concrete. It's all tied together with a lot of rebar.
Is rebar also tying?
Yes. Yep. Let's keep heading up. I think that when I can show you some of the different stages, you guys will really appreciate it all.
All right.